Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Kelly Loudermilk. Kelly is a human resources professional, a small business owner, and the mother of two. She's been working in HR for over 10 years and has had the opportunity to work with businesses as small as 3 people and as large as 15,000. She helps CEOs, leaders, managers, and fellow peers transform the way they work with their people within the HR space. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thanks so much, Tyler, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, now you're going to talk to us today about curiosity. So the floor is now yours.
Absolutely. So the thing that I think about when it comes to curiosity is what's curiosity, right? And it's interesting because that is a perfect example of what curiosity is. It's questioning and investigation. It's learning. It's collecting as much information as you can just to learn and retain it and grow from that. And I think it's an extremely important topic, not only during a pandemic when we have time to be curious, but also from a student perspective when we're learning and developing all the way up to the people that I work with in businesses. It's extremely important because it is the key to success. And it's a newer thing to think about. So a couple hundred years ago, curiosity didn't actually mean what it is today. It actually meant being very, very careful and approaching of something, which is very different than what we think about when it's curiosity today. So curiosity today is truly that investigative state. And it's the desire to learn and to understand and really know how things work. So curiosity can manifest in a lot of different ways, right? So in high school and in middle school, back in my day, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all these fun little toys that people have now with distance learning. So gossip was a big deal. Everybody had those gossip circles. Well, that's a form of curiosity. Those magazines, I loved a lot of the teenager magazines or the preteen magazines when, Disney and I think Nickelodeon at the time would produce these. That's another form of curiosity, those tabloids, those news stories. Journalists are the prime example of what curiosity looks like within a profession because they're investigative, they're getting down to something. So it doesn't just stem from that, social side, okay? It can also lead into sciences and learning. Why did we go to the moon? Because we were curious what was up there. Why do we want to go beyond just our galaxy and understand that concept of the universe? Because we're curious about it. We want to know. And that's why it's so important, because it's leading to inventions. It's leading to discoveries beyond what we could even perceive right now in our world, but it also leads to performance within the workplace. So curiosity in the workplace for my particular job plays out when leadership shows curiosity and when they are able to bring out that curiosity in their employees. And why that is important for leadership, same as a teacher. A teacher is a leadership to a student. You want to be curious because different solutions to problems can come from that, and more creatively as well. And you're not as boxed in either. So for an example, this came out in the news during the pandemic, probably a little bit more applicable to people my age versus in school. But there was a CEO of a very popular company in Seattle that was curious about what to do with cutting employees' jobs. So he didn't make the decision. He went to his employees and asked them, what should we do? And the employees actually voted to all take salary cuts instead of having to lose their work. And because of that, there was buy-in for multiple people. It was implemented across the organization. It was a change that occurred in the trust between their leadership and them as employees. It was a much better approach to this pandemic in an employer scenario than just cutting jobs. He took his curiosity to his people and said, what should we do? And they came up with a solution that worked out for both parties and that was accepted by everyone. And that's a really important reason why curiosity from leadership is important in my work. Now, to kind of switch gears, Curiosity is important as a student because it really helps you develop what you like to do. When you are bored, what does your mind go to? The first thing that you think of. Mine was writing. I love to write, and I didn't know that I loved to write until I had Mr. Payne my senior year in high school. And he'll never know that he fostered that love in me in my creative writing class, but he did. But when I got bored from then on out, I turned to writing. But writing led me down a couple of other paths because I was curious about those paths. So we all like board games, at least in my generation, because we didn't have video as cool of video games, let's put it that way. But board games are about this journey, not necessarily the destination. Now, granted, you want to win, but it's about the fun that you create along the way, right? That's what curiosity is. You don't have a full destination in mind, and that's what makes curiosity so great, because you're developing so many different avenues, so many different plays on that board that develop over the course of time that may spear off into different directions and lead you to life passions, careers, different people in your social groups that you might find. You might find out that you love science, that you actually want to be an engineer, or you might find out I have this new way to get myself out of bed in the morning when I'm not feeling so great. I'm going to invent this little radio clock that I did, and it's going to chase around my room, so I have to physically get up and go get it. That's an invention that was made out of curiosity. You know, it's an annoying invention, but it works. So there's just, if you look around, everything will lead you to a question. That question will lead you to information, and that information will lead to a passion or a solution or a career. It's just something that I think is super important to foster. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck do I do to foster curiosity? Well, that's the first step, right? So there's a lot of different ways. So my son is 6 years old. He is bombarded with, I can't tell you how much technology. In kindergarten alone, he's learning even how to code. There's not a lot of boredom time. And when he is bored, he doesn't know what to do. He comes to me and asks me constantly, what should I do? What should I do? The question is nothing, you know, like, or the answer to the question is nothing, right? Because it's when you are truly bored and you figure something out to do that you start down that path. So if you're bored, I mean, you have more resources at your fingertips than ever before that you could imagine. Just start Googling your interests. Do you like video games? Well, maybe there's a course on how to master a video game, or maybe something that could be learning to coding. Are you more technical? Are you more creative? You can Google different personality assessments that are out there for free to do that. Find out if you're creative, find out if you're technical, and just keep Googling. Oh, you know, I really liked that art project one day. I would love to Google like art courses. And then that might lead you down a different path of like, well, I found this topic. Now I'm really interested in that topic. So an example, before I kind of wrap up, because I know it's kind of a long scenario here. So curiosity for me came about at a conference. I was at a human resource conference in Vegas last year, which is a very important one for people in my profession. I was waiting in line for an author to sign my book. And there was another author there too, and she was signing books, but there was no one in her line at the time. And so I went over to her to talk because I saw her title, Cracking the Curiosity Code. And that piqued my curiosity, no pun intended. But essentially, I got to learn about what she wrote about. I got to meet the author, which you don't get to do. And I really got interested in her topic. And so I read her book, and she was one of the first people to really break down what curiosity is from a scientific method, how to foster curiosity, that it's an attribute that you can truly build over time, and, you know, the importance of curiosity. So that led me down a couple of different paths with Googling resources. But then I found out all of this links to a bigger topic of neuroscience. I'm an HR profession. I don't do math. I don't do science. I'm not that smart when it comes to things outside of my realm. It's very targeted knowledge, right? I can spew a law for Colorado employment, but you tell me to do a math problem, I'm getting my calculator. So neuroscience sounds like a big overarching topic. That's like, holy moly, what the heck? But there's little bits and pieces that I can learn or really understand by taking simple free courses online. So there's a lot of different resources that are offering free trainings or free courses right now. And I'm taking full advantage of that during this time because my curiosity led me to those websites. But I'm learning a little bit of neuroscience and what that means. So curiosity peaks dopamine, a chemical in our brain that rewards us and makes us feel satisfied and accomplished and successful. It's a happiness chemical, essentially. But when you learn something new out of asking a question, your brain intrinsically rewards you and you feel happier and more satisfied with your life. And so that is a chemical reaction that we're constantly creating by asking questions. Now, I only know that because I took that first step towards that other author that piqued my curiosity on her title of her book. And that led me down that path, but it led me down a lot of different paths that led to a bigger topic. And so that's a personal example of, all of this information that I'm spewing, and it's not necessarily clear cut or straightforward. It's because that's exactly what curiosity is. It's super messy. It's super sticky. It's not going to be a straight answer for you, but let the journey happen. Keep asking questions, keep experimenting what you like or dislike or what you want to learn or not learn. And if you don't have that right away, that aha moment, that's okay. That's part of the process. It will happen. And that's when the magic starts to happen. So just allow that to happen and you'll be excited to see where it might go for you. So that's my little life spiel on curiosity there for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kelly. You're speaking my language here. I'm in the curiosity business as a teacher. That's what I want all my students to do is be curious all their life. But I have to point out a few things about your story that make it a little different from other people's story. As you talked about curiosity, it wasn't just that you had an idea or were starting to think about something. It's that you took action. And I think it's important that we point that out here, that when you were in that line, you started asking questions. And once you got your questions answered, then you started doing some Google searches. And it took you to neuroscience, which you never would have got to had you not taken action in the first place. So I think that's really important. As kids are stuck at home right now, whether they want to or not, they're stuck at home. They have a lot of extra time. Now is the time to take action. And so I want to ask you a little bit about that as kids start to discover what they do like and what they are interested in. What are some first steps in exploring that curiosity? What are the things they should do to dig deeper?
It's a very good question. And I think that also is kind of the answer, right? So it like you said, verbatim, it's taking the action. That is the most important step. And you're right, that is the most important step. So if you have a curiosity around something, you should be asking those questions. Take that action upon yourself to look for information, to learn more. You love to code. Coding is a big deal right now. Look for resources out there. Google different free courses that are out there that you want to learn. Or, like, hey, I really want to go into being an electrician because my dad was an electrician. I love the trade. Well, talk to your dad or talk to a family member that has that job or that trade and ask questions. What did you do? Like, why do you like it? What does a day look like in your job? What would I have to do to become that profession? Or even just sitting with yourself and writing in your journal. Some people are a lot more intrinsically focused and process more intrinsically. Just writing will allow you to clear your mind to give you those next steps. So maybe you're curious about aquatic life. You love the aquarium. You've always loved it. You don't know much about the science behind it, but you want to get involved with animals, but you don't know how. So then maybe you just write about it. Maybe you talk about your passion, or maybe you just watch some videos or Google. It's taking the action to ask questions, to look online. Google is an amazing resource because honestly, half the time that I'm Googling something, I don't know what I'm Googling for. I don't know what I'm trying to ask. I just put random words in, and then it kind of leads me to different links. And then you kind of get a better idea. Okay, this is how I'm supposed to ask that. So,
Well, hold on.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I have to stop here because what you just said is gold. One of the skills that our generation did not grow up with, that kids today definitely have in Generation Z, is the ability to troubleshoot or problem solve on the fly. And what you just explained was how to do that. If you don't know the right question, just start putting words out there and it will come together. That is so brilliant. I've never heard it expressed that way, but this is one of the skills that transfers to almost any profession. If you learn how to troubleshoot or to solve problems, and sometimes you don't know what the problem is, that's really difficult. But what Kelly just explained was exactly how to get started with it. You just start and take action. So I'm sorry, I cut you off mid-sentence. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that process?
Oh, that's exactly it. And I'm apologizing for the background noise if you do hear some. But essentially, it is just that. It's figuring it out by putting in keywords. You like marine life, start typing in aquariums, start typing in experiences, start typing in dolphins, and what do you learn? Like, it's just different words, and it will lead you to those questions, because Google has an algorithm that allows you to see like that little text box that has questions lined out, and then you can click those down, and that kind of helps tailor your search a little bit more, because it is difficult to take an action, right, when you don't know where you're going. And so you have to overcome that by just taking that first step and start to Google it, even just a couple of words, and it will start to build upon itself.
Cool. Now, Kelly, are you curious about the same things now that you were curious about 20 years ago?
No, not at all.
So when kids are curious today and they start going down a rabbit hole and it sucks all their time and their life away from them, is that a bad thing or a good thing?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's honestly their passion coming to life. I find myself, when you are truly enjoying something or passionate about something and you're going down that rabbit hole, time just flies by. And it's because you're invested in it. And when you're invested in it, I don't think that's a bad thing. Now, if you're going down a rabbit hole of things that maybe aren't super healthy for you, then yeah, maybe that's a bad thing. But when it's truly something that you enjoy and it's for the betterment of you, then it possibly can't be a bad thing. I think it's a really important thing to have.
Okay. I'm going to push back on that just a little bit here. One of the things that I've noticed during this pandemic with my own kids being home more is they have a screen that they can be behind. If they have the option of binging on Netflix or binging on YouTube, which one would you recommend and why?
I would say YouTube, because it offers different links to similar information, as well as there's more information that is not as targeted for entertainment. So Netflix is an entertainment platform. That is their main business. They have documentaries, which are great. And if you find that a documentary applies to you, like a history specific one or the Michael Jordan one right now, like, yeah, that's going to be great. But at the same time, I think YouTube has more information that is not as entertainment specific, and so you might get more different, you might get more resources that are more for academic purposes or more for how-tos. If you're trying to learn how to change a filter on a camera because you love photography, you're going to see that on a how-to video on YouTube versus Netflix. So I would say YouTube. My son loves dinosaurs to this day. You can't get him to stop talking about it. He has seen every Jurassic World and every Jurassic Park. And he loves watching dinosaur videos. And so he'll click on all these different links and it will take him to educational resources. It will take him to review different dinosaur types of toys. It will take him to really weird comedic father-son types of shows where they're trying to search for dinosaurs. But it's just another rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole that gives you more opportunities for learning than for entertainment.
Yeah, that's great. You were talking earlier about what happens when you're bored or when you don't know what you should be curious about. And it reminded me of something I wish I had learned earlier. When I was in college, I heard a story. It was from a university president. And he talked about when he was in college, his father was a world famous scientist and a professor at Stanford. And the son, his name was Hal, and he didn't know, he was so frustrated with his homework and getting ready for college. And one day his dad just stopped him and he said, what do you think about when you have nothing else to think about? And he said, oh, actually, he must have been in college at the time, because his answer wasn't what he was studying. And his dad said, well, maybe you should change your major because you're not passionate about it. You haven't explored other things. And that was a turning point in his life where he did course correct and change and pursued something then that he did become passionate about. And I've thought about that a lot in my own life since that. In fact, I go through this exercise. What do I think about when I have nothing else to think about? For me, that's when I go to bed at night before I, fall asleep, when I have to just keep my mind racing and thinking about things. What am I thinking about? And then how am I pursuing that passion the next day when I have time to act on it? And I think what you've provided today is a lot of really specific advice on how to take action. We're looking at YouTube. We're looking at exploring the passions that we have and making adjustments. I love that you pointed out that curiosity can change with time. None of the interests I had 30, 40 years ago are the same interests. Well, maybe a few are the same, but most of them have changed, right? So as we have kids that are now exploring their passions, as they're manifesting their curiosity by taking action, do you have any final advice on how to get the most out of that, how to make sure that it's leading to something proactive or productive, or does it even need to be? Is it just exploring curiosity for the sake of curiosity? Is that enough?
I think it's a combo of the two. So exploring curiosity for the sake of curiosity means that you're an investigator, and you might find out that you love to write. Maybe investigative journalism is your thing, or you might find out you love how things tick or they work. And so you go down that rabbit hole for the sake of just curiosity. You might be a scientist in the making. So I think it's a combination to explore just for the sake of exploring, because that's how you get to the destination of what that might look like for you. But then if you also know that one of the pieces is proactive for you and for the betterment of you, because there's going to be some that we're honestly going to automatically trigger knowing that it's going to be better for us. Like, I want to learn how to write better. Well, then let's learn about writing and writers courses. So like that one is very specific. But I think when you combine the two, that's when you get the most success. So the biggest piece of advice, and I know this is kind of cliche to say, but don't judge it. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge what you're curious about. Don't put any judgment towards what you are going to do in that rabbit hole. Just do it. Explore it. Reserve all of your thoughts about it and just go further. Because if you judge it, you probably won't go as far as you want to. Or if you're judging a thought on how I like this thing, but that's not going to work. I'm not. I can't explore that as an opportunity, or people are going to say this about me, because there's so much peer pressure in general, and peer pressure along with peer pressure. So I think you can't judge yourself and you can't judge what you're curious about, and just go down those paths so that you can actually explore them. And you may find out that, oh, I don't actually like that at all. And that's okay. I love to bake. I'm not a baker, but I go down those paths of finding recipes and I do it, and I don't judge what I create. You should see some of the pictures of what I've tried to create and what I did create, and they're not super great. But you don't judge it and you have fun doing it. Like that show Nailed It. That's a good example of curiosity in the baking world. I love it. But yeah, just don't judge, I think, yourself or your thought process during this, so that you can actually truly explore with all of yourself and make the most out of it.
Awesome. That's really great advice. Thanks, Kelly. If kids want to learn more about you and what you're doing, or if someone wants to hire you to come out to speak to a youth group, where should they go to find you?
So you can find me on any social media platform. LinkedIn is my go-to. So LinkedIn-Kelly Loudermilk. YourHRSource.com is my website. That's a lot more specifically tailored to the business aspect of it. But that has all my contact information and links to my different social media. Twitter is also pretty active at YourHRSource.com as well, or YourHRSource is the Twitter handle. But just any social media outlet or my website, you're going to be able to get a hold of me right away. And I'm always there to answer questions for anybody.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for visiting us here on Virtual School Assembly. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.